Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
During our most recent Ask the Clergy Shabbat, a member of the congregation asked all of us that were there, the clergy, to offer an answer to this question. What was the most significant historical event in Jewish history? In the weeks following that Shabbat, a number of people reached out to me to talk to me about my answer. I believe my answer to the question went something like this. As a modernist, the emancipation of the Jews would be the most important historical event in Jewish history. I went on to reflect that in the late 18th century in European history, gave birth to many experiments that we continue to remain engaged with today. The ongoing emancipation of the Jews, democracy, capitalism, and Reform Judaism. As with any ongoing experiment, there are many possible outcomes. These outcomes rely upon our actions. During these past 2 months, since the last Shabbat of 2024, we have all, no doubt, witnessed troubling events around the world. Some of these events might even cause one to question the viability of communities, governments, and countries. One might think that our experiment is approaching its conclusion, a conclusion that places many aspects of our lives in jeopardy. While a student at Hebrew Union College, I had the honor to study with historian Jeffrey Gurok. He posited that despite our thoughts to the contrary, Jews in the United States have not yet become fully emancipated. The ultimate test, he said, I'm going to raise this up. The ultimate test, he taught, would be that American society would allow widespread, open proselytization of Christians by Jews. After all, Christians may openly proselytize whomever they want, with little alarm. Eliminating this disparity, he said, between Jews and Christians would be a sure sign of complete emancipation. In the years since my ordination, I have revisited his premise numerous times. I might add to his thinking that whatever emancipation was or is meant to be for the Jewish community in the United States, it should also be measured by the ability of Jews to actively participate in the nourishment of American culture and society without restrictions, harassment, or fear. The evidence increasingly shows that despite all the inroads and successes to the contrary, by both measures, Gurok's and the one I just offered, we have yet to arrive at a point of full emancipation. In her most recent book, The Builder's Stone, How Jews and Christians Built the West and Why Only They Can Save It, Melanie Phillips presents us with a picture of Western civilization careening toward a fatal crash landing, my words. She points to the Enlightenment as one of the important catalysts for what was to come, the French Revolution and the Emancipation. She challenges us to consider our allegiance to long-held things like liberalism, progressivism, and universalism. Similarly, she challenges us to take a hard look at these same trends in liberal Jewish communities. If she had stopped there, this book would leave us without hope for the future. But she doesn't stop there. Rather, she offers a path forward for the West Europe, and the United States. One need to look no further than the responses post-October 7, 2023. If you felt like a twisted pretzel following that day, you are not alone. I too tried to reconcile deeply held ideals, love of humanity, cause and effect rationales, with the clear, undeniable heinousness of the acts perpetrated by thousands of stormtroopers gliding, tunneling, and driving into Israel to slaughter, rape, and torture, only to return home to gleeful cheers of their families, friends, and communities as they paraded the injured and maimed hostages of all ages. The outrage heard around the world did not last even a full day before calls of a measured response were heard from the supposed civilized world, before the victim would be cast as the villain, a complete perversion of reality. This week, we studied the Torah portion, Terumah. In it, we learn about the instructions God gave to Moses. Daber el bnei Yisrael, v'yikachu li terumah, me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo, tikachu et terumati. Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts, me being God. You shall accept gifts for me from every person whose heart is so moved. V'asuli mikdash v'shakanti b'tocham. Let them make for me a sanctuary, that I may dwell in their midst. Moses instructed the Israelites to Terumah, to set aside materials for the building of the tabernacle, the sanctuary, all to be given as gifts from one's heart. Despite all the signs they had witnessed as a people, the deliverance out of Egyptian slavery, the revelation of the law at Mount Sinai, the people needed to feel a closeness to God's presence. The question we must ask ourselves, is this Mikdash, this place of holiness, a place where God dwells? Is it a gift that requires nothing from us? What would guarantee God's taking residence in this Mikdash? No doubt, it's beautiful. Its construction is filled with intentions of holiness. Is that all the insurance we need? The Torah, the law, is filled with messages to the contrary. One need look no further than the entire book of Deuteronomy to see that we have the power to choose good or evil, to choose life or death. We have the power to keep the light of holiness alive inside and outside this space. Likewise, if our experiments are to continue to flourish, we have and have a good outcome. It will be entirely up to us to make it happen. If our experiment of Reform Judaism is to succeed, it will be because we have engaged in reclaiming the mitzvot in a modern context. Nearly 20 years ago, Rabbi Richard Levy implored our movement to do just that when he offered A Vision of Holiness, the Future of Reform Judaism. This book presented a first-hand explanation of the creation of the 1999 Pittsburgh Platform. As well, it laid out concrete ways to bring to fruition the ideals of a revitalized reform movement. If we are to listen to our critics and respond to the signs of stress or decline of our institutions, governments, and nations, we will have to navigate between the centuries-old move towards modernity and the desire to ensure that our laws continue to stand as a foundation of our Judaism, our community, our nation, and beyond. This Mikdash, this sanctuary, will continue to be a place where God dwells as long as our actions warrant God's presence. Gifts of the heart are the starting place. Gifts alone, though, will build an empty shell. Ultimately, God's presence in our mikdash, in our lives, relies upon us to act, to engage in the mitzvot. This has been the message since we accepted the Torah at Sinai. Similarly, our democracy, culture, and civilization all rely upon us. Melanie Phillips might be correct in her assessment about Western civilization, but the outcome still remains in question and in our control. This is the place and the time to engage in the work. Elevating the Torah, its laws and foundations may well be the only way we have to ensure that Reform Judaism, that experiment, thrives. Likewise, focusing upon the rule of law and the elemental attributes of our American culture, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all, may yet be possible when we work together. One of the prescriptions Phillips gives is that Jews, the innovators of laws, civilization, and endurance, and Christians, inheritors of the rich heritage Jews lived and taught, along with genuinely like-minded people, will need to join together in order to save the West from itself, in order to create a more perfect union. As we are taught in Pirkei Avot, we are not required to finish the work, but we are required to engage in it. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Muktia.